wondered why people talk in terms of bananas and pineapples and apples and passion fruit when they describe wine? It's got nothing to do with what goes into the wine. It's only grapes that goes into wine. We don't use passion fruit, we don't use bananas, we don't use pineapples. But very often those wines do have those aromas that we associate with those different fruits. And a little tool that we use is something called the Aroma Wheel, which was developed by a lady called Ann Noble in California some years ago. And if you think about it, wine is a very special beverage, and it's communicated between people all over the world in magazines, TV shows, radios, magazines, or just even person to person. And there was never a real universal language of wine until this came about. And then what Ann Noble realized was that a banana in Brazil tastes and smells pretty much the same as a banana in France. So describing something in terms, a wine that might have some aromas of banana, meant something between people who would ordinarily speak two completely different languages. And it's also a useful tool for us too, because we gradually build up a memory bank of flavours that we like or flavours that we dislike. So to give you an example here, we might decide that you start from the inside of the aroma wheel and work out. So we might decide that the red wine that we're drinking has got a fruity smell to it. So following it out from there, we say to ourselves, well, what sort of fruit? Is it tree fruit? Is it tropical fruit? Is it citrus fruit? Or is it berry fruit? And more often than not in red wines it tends to be berry fruit. So then we can go to the next part of the circle and it says, okay, what type of berry is it? Does it smell of strawberries? Pinot Noir often has aromas of strawberries, and Rosé has strawberry aromas. Is it a bit more than that? Is it a bit slightly darker fruit? Is it like blackberry or blackcurrant? And blackcurrant is a classic descriptor for Cabernet Sauvignon. So different wines produce different flavours, just quite naturally and through the winemaking process. And the aroma wheel just helps us describe them. There's also some not so desirable descriptors as well. Anybody who's had a dog would know what a wet dog smells like, and that's a descriptor here as well under the chemical category, as is burnt match. You know, when you've lit a match and you smell that sulphury burnt smell afterwards, and those typically are descriptors that come from wines which have had a winemaking fault, wines that haven't been made as carefully as they could be. Fortunately, very rare for that to happen in New Zealand. So you don't have to have an aroma wheel to describe wine in terms of different flavours and smells that you're familiar with. Our sense of smell is the most evocative of all our senses. We'll all have been somewhere where you'll smell something which will take you back 10, 20, 30, 40 years right to your childhood. In my case, it's often smoke. I associate smoke and the smell of macrocarpa with some very early stages of my life, and it'll be the same for you. And quite often you can be tasting a wine and think, gee, and this happened to me not so long ago, gee, it really reminds me of something, but I can't put my finger on it. And then someone will walk past and say, gee, that smells like coffee, and you'll go, bingo, now I know what that reminded me of. And it means that next time you can file that away in your memory bank, and you'll know that when you buy that particular wine or that particular style, that often it's going to have those coffee type characters that you really like. So start building up your vocabulary. Some of it can be a bit over the top when you're reading some wine writers, but at the end of the day, it's only your flavours and aromas that are meaningful to you. So just the only way to do that is just to keep practicing.